There is a number that professional golf uses to define the boundary of the possible. It isn't written anywhere officially. It isn't in the rulebook or the tournament guidelines or the tour's statistical database. But every player knows it, every caddy carries it, and every analyst reaches for it instinctively when a leaderboard produces a gap too large to discuss seriously in the final round. That number is 7. 7 shots back with 18 holes to play is, in the accumulated wisdom of professional golf, in the historical record of thousands of final rounds across decades of tour competition, the edge of the possible. Comebacks from 7 have happened. Rarely. So rarely that each one gets its own paragraph in the sport's mythology, gets named and dated and treated as an outlier, so extreme it barely qualifies as a data point. He was 8 back. 8 shots behind the leader when he walked to the first tee this morning. Which means he began today's round on the wrong side of the line that professional golf draws between the possible and the theoretical. He began it in the territory of the irrelevant. In the position that broadcast teams, quite reasonably, do not factor into their final round storytelling. He ended it with the trophy. What happened between those two facts is not a golf story. Not really. It is a story about the particular, almost irrational courage of deciding to play a round that the sport's entire body of knowledge has told you cannot go the way you need it to go, and then playing it that way anyway. 8 shots is not just a number. On the morning of a final round, 8 shots is a physical reality. It sits in the body differently than 1 shot, or 3 shots, or even 5. 1 shot back produces a specific kind of focused urgency, the urgency of a person who is right there, who just needs to hold on and strike. 5 shots produces a looser, more creative urgency, the urgency of someone who needs to be brilliant and knows the leaders need to stumble and has decided that both things are possible. 8 shots produces something different. 8 shots produces, in most players, a kind of professional resignation that is not the same as giving up, but performs a similar function. You play well. You compete with integrity. You post the best number you can, and you sign the card, and you find the things you learned, and you come back next week. 8 shots back is not a position you attack. It is a position you manage toward the most respectable available exit. He did not manage it toward a respectable exit. But to understand why, to understand what was different in him on this particular Sunday morning, you need to know what the week had looked like. Because the 8-shot deficit did not arrive cleanly. It arrived as the accumulated result of 3 days of near misses, of irons that caught the wrong part of the green, of putts that circled the hole with a cruelty that felt, by Saturday evening, almost personal. He had not played badly. He had played the specific, maddening kind of well that produces mediocre scores, the kind where the talent is visible and the result is not. His caddy said, the night before the final round, that he'd never seen him so quiet at dinner. Not defeated quiet. Processing quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when someone is having an internal argument they haven't finished and don't want interrupted. He arrived at the course Sunday morning 2 hours before his tee time. He hit balls on the range until the session produced something he recognized. Not a perfect swing, not the swing he'd been searching for all week, but a swing with a particular quality of release that told him, this is available. Today, this is available. The question was only whether he would let himself use it. The front 9 began not with fireworks, but with something more dangerous, momentum. The quiet, accumulating kind that doesn't announce itself on the broadcast until it's already become undeniable. Birdie on 1, a putt from the edge of the green that dropped with a casualness inconsistent with the pressure attached to it. Par on 2. Birdie on 3 from close range after an approach that his caddy described as the first time all week the ball had gone exactly where the conversation between them had said it should go. Par on 4. Birdie on 5. 3 under through 5 holes. Which brought him to 5 under for the tournament, which brought him to 5 back, which brought him, mathematically, into the territory that the sport considers very difficult but not impossible. The broadcast team, to their credit, noticed. Not with urgency. 5 back with 13 to play is notable, but not yet a story you restructure your afternoon around. But notable. His name appeared on the on-screen leaderboard graphic with the small indicator that says, this person is moving. Pay mild attention. He paid no attention to the leaderboard. His caddy would confirm this later with some emphasis, that they had a specific, explicit agreement for the day, made over the dinner he'd eaten in near silence the night before, that the leaderboard was not a resource available to either of them until the 16th hole at the earliest. Every shot would be played against the course, not against the gap. The gap was not his problem. Making the right decision on the shot in front of him was his problem. And then the next shot. And the one after that. It is a strategy that sounds simple and is, in the context of a Sunday leaderboard with a trophy available and cameras pointing at you and a gallery that knows the numbers even when you don't, one of the most demanding forms of competitive discipline available in professional sport. He executed it without visible strain through 9 holes. 6 under. For back. The broadcast team had stopped using the word mild. 10 and 11 passed in birdies. Each one tightening the arithmetic. Each one expanding the gallery at his hole. Each one adding another name to the mental list of broadcast team members who had quietly moved from mild interest to the edge of their chairs. 2 back. 7 holes left. And then 12 happened. A tee shot that caught the left rough. Not badly, but badly enough. A lie that presented options and made none of them comfortable. His caddy gave him the numbers and gave him the options and then, unusually, gave him the silence required to make the decision entirely himself. Because there are moments in a round when a caddy's most important job is to step back and trust, and this was one of them. He made the wrong choice. Not catastrophically. There are no catastrophic wrong choices at this level, only costly ones. He went at a pin that the lie did not support going at, and the shot that resulted was the shot the lie had been warning him about. Slightly heavy, pulling left, into the bunker that protected the front of the green with the architectural patience of something that has been waiting for exactly this error. Bogey. 3 back. 6 to play. The impossible had briefly become slightly more impossible. And the gallery, which had been building its own emotional investment in an outcome it hadn't anticipated this morning, went through the particular, collective deflation of people who had allowed themselves to believe in something and felt, in this moment, the cost of that belief. His caddy watched his face and said nothing because what he saw there did not require a response. What he saw was not despair, not frustration collapsing into doubt. What he saw was a player who had made a mistake, registered it with complete clarity, and then, in the span of about 4 seconds, set it down. Not suppressed it, not managed it. Simply put it behind him with the finality of someone who has no use for it anymore. He walked to 13 with the pace of a man who had not just made a bogey. He walked like a man who was already on 13. 13, birdie. An eagle putt that lipped out. The kind of near miss that reframes a birdie as a mild disappointment, which is one of golf's more sophisticated forms of torture, but a birdie nonetheless. 2 back. 14, birdie. A wedge to tap in distance from a position that rewarded the specific shape of shot he'd been working on since the range session that morning. The shot he'd found. The one that told him, this is available. 1 back. The leader bogeyed 15. Tied. The word moved through the course the way these words always move, faster than light travels between tee and green, through phones and gallery whispers, and the particular shift in broadcast team vocal energy that carries from the commentary position across whatever distance separates it from the player being discussed. Tied. From 8 back at the start of the day. Tied. He found out on the 16th tee. His caddy told him. The 16th was the agreed point, the earliest he was allowed to know, and he received the information with an expression his caddy would later be very specific about. Not elation, not relief, not the visible release of a man who has been carrying something heavy and has finally been given permission to put it down. He nodded once, small and private, and then he hit the best drive of his week. 16, birdie, the lead, alone, with 2 holes left. The gallery at 16 released a sound that the broadcast team would later describe as the loudest sustained noise they had recorded from a non-final hole position in 3 years of working this event. It was the sound of several hundred people who had arrived this morning with no particular expectation of this afternoon and were now discovering, in real time, that they had been present for something that the sport would be discussing for years. 17, par. Controlled, deliberate, a 2-putt from 40 feet that he handled with the settled authority of a man who understands that not every hole is required to be a statement. 18, par. A tee shot down the center. An approach to the heart of the green. 2 putts that the last group would need to better to deny him the outright win. And the last group, carrying their own impossible afternoon of pressure and collapse and recovery, could not better it. He won by 1. From 8 back. In the winner's interview, surrounded by the managed chaos of a tournament conclusion, a journalist asked him when he first believed it was possible. He didn't hesitate. On the range this morning, he said, when I found the shot, I knew the math was wrong. I knew what 8 shots meant, and I knew the history, and I knew what everyone watching was thinking. But I found the shot, and something in me said, just go play. Let the math figure itself out. Your job is to go play. He paused. Then, almost quietly enough to miss, the math figured itself out. The impossible is, usually, a name we give to things we haven't yet seen anyone do. It is a category that exists right up until the moment it doesn't, until someone crosses the boundary we'd drawn and the boundary, exposed as imaginary, quietly disappears. He crossed one today. 8 shots. Final round. 1 trophy. The math, against all its own evidence, figured itself out.